The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has criticised several countries that have formally recognised a Palestinian state and reiterated Israel's opposition to such a move. Scores of delegates staged a walkout as Mr Netanyahu prepared to address the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Taoiseach Micheál Martin, who also addressed the Assembly, described the situation in Gaza as a catastrophe of the most monumental and consequential kind.
It started, like last year, with a mass walkout of delegates. But Benjamin Netanyahu was not deterred, his message combative and unyielding.
Giving the Palestinians a state 1 mile from Jerusalem after October 7th is like giving Al-Qaeda a state 1 mile from New York City after September 11th. This is sheer madness. It's insane, and we won't do it.
He attacked the states that have recently recognised a Palestinian state.
Israel will not allow you to shove a terrorist state down our throats. We will not commit national suicide because you don't have the guts to face down a hostile media and anti-Semitic mobs demanding Israel's blood.
And he denounced Western support for a two-state solution.
Wait a minute, Mr. Prime Minister, they tell me. Wait a minute. We believe in a two-state solution where the Jewish state of Israel will live side by side in peace with the Palestinian state. There's only one problem with that. The Palestinians, they don't believe in this solution. They never have. They don't want a state next to Israel. They want a Palestinian state instead of Israel. And that's why every time they were offered a Palestinian state, but were required to end the conflict with Israel and recognize the Jewish state, every time, over the decades, they turned it down.
A short time later, the Taoiseach was equally forthright.
We are all witnesses to the immense wrath of one of the world's most modern and best equipped armies brought to bear on a trapped and defenceless civilian population. Last week, the Independent International Commission on the Occupied Territories called it out for what it is. Having examined carefully Israel's conduct of the war since 2023, as well as the actions and statements of senior Israeli military and political figures, it concluded that Israel is responsible for the commission of genocide in Gaza. Genocide, the gravest of crimes in international law.
Afterwards, he reacted to Mr Netanyahu's speech.
I don't understand how a person can go to sleep at night being responsible for such trauma and such carnage in Gaza. As I said, Hamas must be held to account for what it did, but not the entirety of the Palestinian people. And there cannot be a continuation of the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. And that's the point. There is no moral justification for the continuation of this war whatsoever. So his speech in that respect was deeply, deeply disappointing, to say the least.
Meanwhile, in Washington, President Trump thinks he has a deal that can end the war in Gaza.
I think it's a deal that will get the hostages back. It's going to be a deal that will end the war. It's going to be a deal it's going to be peace.
Sean Whelan, RTE News, New York.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is under increasing domestic pressure to end the war in Gaza and to bring home the remaining hostages. Our Europe editor Tony Connolly and cameraman Bram Verbeke report now from Tel Aviv on how Mr Netanyahu, despite his survival instincts, may be running out of options.
After October 7th, Benjamin Netanyahu faced significant public anger over Israel's intelligence failures, while polls suggested voters wanted a clear day-after strategy for the war in Gaza. 2 years on, there's no end in sight, and public trust is declining. Only 40% of voters have faith in the Prime Minister, according to the latest survey. Mr Netanyahu has shrugged off relentless accusations that he's prolonging the war to stay in office. His survival skills could become a liability.
We all know his character by now, meaning he postpones things, he doesn't like to discuss things in length, he wants to wait until something happens to his, moving for his direction or for his benefit.
The greatest sense of anger is among hostage families. Of the 50 or so remaining in Gaza, half are thought to be dead. Udi Goren's cousin Tal Haimi was shot by Hamas on October 7th, his body taken into Gaza. He believes the Prime Minister has a choice to make.
I think that there is one and only option for a ceasefire and a deal that would bring back all the hostages. And I will know that this would be in place when I hear Prime Minister Netanyahu saying, "We are done. We're going to end this war in order to return all the hostages."
We won't know that until Monday at the earliest, when Mr. Netanyahu meets President Trump. He appears to be putting pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister to end the war, not least because of Israel's growing isolation. But do Israeli voters now feel the weight of international outrage over the humanitarian cost of the war?
Yes, they do. They think it's gone too far. It's hurting Israel on so many levels. And you cannot go on like that, both from the humanitarian side, but also, Israeli people, they look at their own, they look at the soldiers, the family of the reservists, and obviously the hostages.
Israelis remain traumatized by October 7th, and the hostage situation has polarized the country further.
The hostage families, we've been stuck on October 7th for nearly 2 years. Whereas other things have changed. Some people have moved on. Many families have been destroyed.
And that could force an increasingly hard line Benjamin Netanyahu into a rethink. Time will tell.
And Tony joins us now from Tel Aviv, and we're also joined by our Washington correspondent, Sean Whelan, who's in New York. Sean, to you first, I suppose a big important question is what's likely to happen next when we're hearing of Mr. Netanyahu very clearly determined on that mission to continue in Gaza, and then Mr. Trump saying that there could be possibly close to a deal at this stage.
Yeah, exactly. We're not really sure what the president is talking about in terms of movement, although there has, of course, been a lot of activity going on in the background, and he is due to meet Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday in the White House. So perhaps we'll get more details then. Perhaps we'll get more details over the weekend. We'll see. But you heard in that speech from Mr. Netanyahu, absolutely uncompromising. The short version of that speech is, "We're right and you're all wrong." He denied the allegation of genocide that's been put in that independent UN report, which the Taoiseach referred to, saying we're not committing genocide at all. We are trying to get people away from the military activity zones. It's Hamas who are keeping them there. And he said, did the Nazis warn the Jews of Europe to please go away? No, they didn't. That's proper genocide. What we're doing is not genocide. He also denied the charge of using starvation as a weapon of war. He said, we are sending in 3,000 calories a day of food aid for each and every Palestinian. It's Hamas who are stealing the food, and that's why people are not getting access to the food. He was also utterly uncompromising about the notion of a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine, attacking the Palestinians for always turning it down, and saying that the message that is being sent by countries like Ireland, like France, like Britain, that have recognised a Palestinian state is killing Jews pays off. And he said that's absolutely the wrong message to be sending. But his message was totally uncompromising, aimed, I think, mainly at shoring up support here in America, perhaps a little bit in Europe, and buoying up his supporters at home, who are by no means all of the people in Israel. So it's both defensive and attacking at the same time.
And to Tony, you in Tel Aviv, as we're looking here at the next steps, Mr. Netanyahu was very clear today about the world leaders and that support that has essentially, he said, evaporated for him. The sentiment there in Israel also under pressure as more global condemnation happens.
Yeah, that's right, Karen. I mean, that survey that was carried out in June that put his level of trust among voters at 40%. That was just after the Israel-Iran war, which was popular among voters. So he clearly didn't get any personal surge in support because of that. Now, there is war fatigue. We've heard about soldier families. The cost of living is going up. He does have a base of between 20 and 30% who will always support him, especially the settlers in the West Bank. But here in Tel Aviv, for example, where you've got a much more liberal centre-left constituency, there is tremendous disillusionment and opposition to what he's doing. He's got himself into a very tight corner domestically of his own making. He's reliant on two extreme right-wing religious cabinet ministers who want him to annex the West Bank. They want him to ethnically cleanse Gaza. On the other hand, now he's facing somewhat unexpected and probably for the first time possibly real pressure from Donald Trump to look at this 21-point plan. It's one that's really been kicking around before, and similar plans he has rejected. Now he could think perhaps next week that this is the time, despite the rhetoric in the speech, that this is the time to think his position over, or he could revert to form and play for time.
OK, Tony in Tel Aviv and Sean in New York. Thank you both.